This is really about being free to create what you want your life to look like. We each are our own hero. And how do we take the challenges that come our way and see those as the birth process of us becoming heroic? Can you meet that judgment that ultimately will surface with neutrality?
This is the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim and Curtin.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Wall Street Coach Podcast. I had a thing for a minute. Which podcast am I on now? With me, Kim and Curtin, and Lucas Peterson. How you doing, Lucas?
So good. How are you?
Doing good. Just came off recording the Steady Trade podcast. So I was like, quick, what am I about to say? Is it the right podcast? It was good, though. We had a great episode. Stephen and Tim and I talked about, the top mistakes that traders make. And Stephen Johnson suggested the topic, which was just a great topic. And we went on for a pretty solid hour about it. So that's a really good episode. So if you guys don't know, some of you probably just know me here on this podcast. I am a co-host on the Steady Trade podcast, which is hosted by Stocks to Trade, which is a platform for beginner traders and sophisticated traders. No, they're not sponsoring this podcast. I just love them, and I just want to advocate for them because I think Tim Bowen and Stephen Johnson both have a lot to teach new traders, and their dedication and their forthrightness with what actually happens has made already an impact on me and my own quest to become a trader. I'm very interested in becoming one. And while I've only taken one trade so far, because I don't have that much time, it was an incredible experience, and I look forward to more. So you know the Stocks to Trade people, Steady Trade Lucas. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've listened to him a lot. It's always great. Always fun to listen to you.
Lots of fun. We have fun on the podcast. So if you guys haven't seen that podcast, and even if you think you're not interested in trading, we talk about so many topics. I just don't know how anybody could not be interested in trading or finance, because the world is informed by it. So you might be surprised at how fascinating the topic is. And I do feel a lot of what we talk about in that podcast actually is, again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. What you learn in that podcast about trading is also applicable to life. So I'll be quiet now about the Steady Trade podcast, but I just came off of it. I'm all juiced up, excited about them and what they have to offer and how generous they are. In fact, Tim Bowen hosts Instagram Live before the market opens 5 days a week. That's incredibly helpful to somebody just, getting their feet wet. So big fan of that.
You host Instagram Lives 2 days a week.
This is true. Not
every
5
Tuesday
days
and
a
Thursdays.
week.
Yeah, but yours are
an
hour long.
Well, I try to make them shorter, but once I get rolling, I like doing speed coaching. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do speed coaching, laser coaching for traders and/or for anybody really who wants to just have a place that they have a challenge addressed. So I hope you guys will join us. Kim and Curtin. Curtin is without an A on Instagram, and you guys should come in. And Lucas sometimes coaches there as well, and he'll probably do more of that in the future, as will some of the other coaches on the team. So anyway, thank you for watching our podcast. I just, went off at a little tangent there. But today, speaking of trading is our topic. We're actually going to have a conversation all about just the common issues we have seen traders run into. Lucas and I both have been coaching traders now since Lucas came on board. I've been coaching traders on and off for the past 14 years. Most of the traders, to be honest, that I initially started to work with were institutional traders in finance, firms, because that's been, the majority of the coaching. My work is focused on finance, C-suite level finance executives, and beyond that, obviously. But the day traders, for the most part, even though I had a couple of them through the years, they've really been this past year and a half since my, being a co-host on the Steady Trade podcast. We've seen a huge increase in day traders. And I have to tell you, I've become just this incredible fan of their determination, of their patience, of their discipline. They are just so courageous and so hardworking. So they've really impressed me. And I do think, I don't know that I had that perspective, when I was working in the finance world. Like, it's shifted because I think I understand what is going on in their methodology. But in my defense, I want to say that Peter Leeds, who is a penny stock teacher and trader, is one of the 50 in my book, Transforming Wall Street. And I'm very proud of that. And even though I probably wasn't even conscious of that bias, I remember when I spoke to who was featured in my book, that one or two people gave me pushback about not Peter himself, but just the concept of a day trader. Like, why are you going to put that in the book? And I was like, because this is another perspective of finance that I think is necessary to include, besides the fact that Peter is an incredible man of integrity. So anyway, it's just fascinating how, the journey unfolds.
Yeah, it's great. So today we're going to talk about the common issues for traders.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and the common issues, we have a slew of them, and we're going to break them down a little bit. The first one is fear of failure. We'll talk about that a little bit. Second is fear of missing out. 3 is lack of discipline. 4 is lack of proven edge. 5 is greed. And 6 is ego.
Yeah. Big ones.
Where should we start? Where should we start?
At the top. Let's start with fear of failure.
Okay.
Fear of failure, losing money.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So when you have coached traders, when you hear, how often do you find that this concept, this fear of failure, is something that they bump into?
I think it probably is. It's something that develops later on for traders, I think. I would say initially there's, lack of discipline, of a lack of a proven edge, the FOMO. But I would say that fear of failure, I think, is usually like 1 to 2 years in. Once you know what you're doing, that's when it's like, I've invested this much time and I should be good at this. And then you might start slipping into situations that are not within your proven edge. How about you? Is that what you've seen?
Yes. I mean, I think it can sometimes haunt people sooner than that. I think it's probably more costly a year or two into it for the sophisticated traders. But I see it even with the beginners. Even yesterday's Instagram Live, one of the traders that we've spoken to before in that room, basically identified that a trade he had taken was not one. He felt regretful about it, and he was very angry at himself that he had the loss. And so what the conversation came down to ultimately was that he doesn't like to lose. Like, nobody does.
Yeah,
but
right.
I just found that those who collapse, losing with their worthiness or their self-worth, that can start as soon as you start to trade. I would just caution people, and this is why I think self-awareness is so important as a trader, because if you have certain default settings, they are going to inevitably show up in your trading. It's better to know about them, know about your disposition, before you start to trade. So the concept of failure, like, if you really don't have any comfort with failure, trading is going to be a really painful place for you, because you are probably going to lose more times than you win.
Definitely. You
much more.
Yeah, especially at the beginning. If you're, because I guess these in my mind are two different things, like fear of losing and fear of failure. I'm thinking of failure as totally failing as a trader. Like if you are afraid of losing, you are going to lose so much money in trading.
Yeah.
If you're just like going to hold on to trades because they're working against you, that is something. The best traders that I know, their win rate is like 25%. But they hit huge home runs, and you shouldn't necessarily be doing that at the beginning. You should figure out, what little things work and like taking small percentages. But the good traders are good at managing risk. And that is, if you conflate those ideas as like cutting a loss as failure, you're not going to make it very far in trading.
No, definitely not. And I think the concept of failure, like I remember when I first started coaching, they gave us a bumper sticker, which I may have even talked about in another podcast. They gave us a bumper sticker that had the word failure, and it had confetti and celebration and balloons around it. And it was such a juxtaposition of like, but failure isn't that the worst thing that could happen. And while we were on the Instagram Live, somebody put in a quote that Sarah Blakely, the creatrix of Spanx, and one of the first women billionaires, self-made billionaires that is out there. She was, every day when she came home from school, her dad would ask her and her brother or sister, what had they failed at that day? Like he wanted them to get comfortable with failure. And I think that's just like, it's just a fabulous philosophy for life. How do you get comfortable with failure? And then within that, of course, there's some subtitles like the concept of fear of losing money, and and then looking to underneath that fear too, is it shame? I think shame is what everybody's avoiding, and why the concept of being so afraid of failure, so afraid of loss is tied up in that. It's tied up in the shame.
We're taught to feel shame for losing. So
it's just shocking though. Like think about what would have happened for all of us if we weren't taught that. Like, can you imagine what maybe was possible for all of us?
Yeah.
If like we learn it in our family of origin, we learn it in school, unless, I haven't gone through the entire curriculum of like Montessori school or the Waldorf school, but my experience, the limited amount that it is, which I was very fortunate to have a friend back in Brooklyn whose mom had taught Montessori in Asia for many, many years. And she was raising her children under the Montessori kind of way. I'm pretty sure they were also advocates of failure and loss to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But it's just sad when you think about what we could have been possibly achieving for ourselves if we weren't taught that, there's something to be ashamed of for being wrong.
Yeah. It reminds me of, we were doing that webinar a couple of weeks ago, and, at the beginning of it, you said like, find ways to like I forget the way you put it, but low impact ways to fail. And whatever that is in your life, where it's like, you just will push yourself to a place where you find your edge, and then you just know it. And like, that's not a bad thing to do that.
No.
So that's how we grow, I think.
It's how we grow. And it's also how we develop the muscle memory around discomfort with the discomfort.
Yeah.
It's like, what will be the least costly way you could fail so that you get to see how you handle failure.
Yeah.
But I think in this crazy kind of world, everything's moving so quickly that it's like, really, Kim, is that what you want me to spend my time doing, is failing in something? Can I go try for the gold? And I'm like, yes, but if you fail that's going to hurt even more. So it's like, build up your muscle strength.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid to fail, or be afraid to fail and prepare accordingly, and get your muscles ready for failure, so that, even the concept of muscle fatigue. Like I remember doing, what is it called? It was like super strength training, where you basically took you would have an assist at pushing the weight out on the machine, and the trainer then would let go, and you would have to, you could resist it just until you couldn't resist it. And that was pushing the muscles to failure, almost failure, which was actually what was strengthening you. So that's the metaphor that, I remember even doing that in the gym with the two trainers. And I was like, so convinced I can't hold the weight anymore. And yet there would be my legs holding the weight out. And I was like, we are so wrong about what our tolerance threshold is.
Absolutely.
That's what it taught me. That's what that taught me. So anyway, but shout out to you, Dan Pachter, wherever you are. Pure Conditioning. Let's give a shout out to Pure Conditioning, Dan Pachter, back in New York City. I hope you're doing good. Now let's talk about fear of missing out. How do you interpret fear of missing out, Lucas?
Oh boy, that is where like chasing comes into play. And if we're talking about trading, it's like, you watch something take off and it's like, oh, I wanted to be in that. So then you jump in and your percentage is way off. And yeah, that's what I see most of the time. How about you?
Yes, I think just the comparing. I mean, I know comparing is kind of different, but I feel the comparing is where fear of missing out starts, where traders see other traders online and think, oh, are they doing better than I'm doing? Am I not trading enough or not doing enough to prepare myself to be better? That's where I see the fear of missing out, that they have a tendency to compare themselves and then think they're missing out on a different way of trading than somebody perhaps they admire or somebody that they respect.
Sure.
That just kind of, I feel, leaves like a bad taste in their mouth with themselves and their own success, that which they already have created seems to go out the window when you get lost in the fear of missing out. So
sure. I can definitely see that. I mean, especially when you start comparing yourself to, social media it's a bad place if you're comparing yourself to people there, because people only tell you the good things on social media for the most part. And you're comparing yourself to, like, in most people's cases, especially if you're new to trading, like unrealistic expectations, because you're not to
have the story, have the story. Like you said, they're only sharing the wins, not, but there are some traders who do share their losses and share the pain or the mistakes. And that to me is so, they are the heroes, the ones that are showing their vulnerable side. I think that takes a lot of guts to do. And it's so important for reality.
Yeah, especially for, once again, for newer traders, if you can find the people who will show you either every trade or especially like losing trades, because then it's like they'll usually, like, experienced traders will be like, this is where I messed up. Like I'm happy to have stopped out here because look at what would have happened. So if you can find those people, follow them. They're probably the good ones.
For sure. Absolutely. They are the good ones. All right. So the concept of lack of discipline, I'm just curious, like, do you feel lack of discipline is something that plagues the new traders or just the sophisticated ones?
I think it can be both, depending on the day. I would say it often happens with newer traders, and I think can sometimes join in with like fear of missing out, like where you do start like chasing, something that's already running, and you shouldn't, but you want to be in it. And then you break that discipline of getting into it. Or if I think about, this can be with both, experienced and new traders, but just like the way your day is structured. And if you like break the discipline of however that structure is and start trading at different times, just because you're bored or whatever the reason, if you're breaking the discipline for any reason, I think that you can run into issues. What about you? Or have you seen it?
I think it's the lack of discipline. It is informed sometimes by that fear of missing out, for sure. Just because they want to, they don't want to be left behind, so they don't stick to their specific plan. Yeah. So the discipline, I think, is informed by the grass is always greener on the other side. Like,
Yeah.
oh, if only I had done that. Oh, if only I'd done that. And that commitment to their discipline is just a little bit, it feels like it's, what's the word? It's conditional. Like they're disciplined if X,
Sure.
Y, Z.
Yeah.
And so what I'll say to them usually is you being disciplined has to be unconditional. It has to be, you do this even if it's raining outside, even if you don't want to get out of bed. That is commitment to yourself, your word to yourself. Be a man or woman of your word to yourself. That helps you with the concept of discipline. Being able to control that it's hard if you come from a place of thinking, well, it's okay under these circumstances. Like being so committed to what your word is helps alleviate some of that gray area.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like and some of this ties back into, I think, just like self-awareness and like knowing what your word is, right?
For sure.
And just sticking to that and believing in it. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yep.
It's like valuing it and believing in what your word is, and then and being responsible for that. So
yeah, for sure. Some of the things that you attract under lack of discipline was knowing what to do, but not being able to control action. Come sometimes from doubting of self, unsure of style or pattern when new to trading, and raising self-awareness to know your tendencies and comfort and styles. And I think each of them are kind of their own topic in a way, but the concept of not knowing what to do, I think is a big one, especially for new traders. Make sure perhaps with some of what we're speaking about, is this even apply to you? Because look, at the beginning, how can you have discipline to something you don't even have yet? Like you don't even have a plan yet,
Yeah.
So you can't really get mad at yourself for having no discipline when you haven't crafted the discipline or the structure or the template.
Yeah, which kind of leads us into the next one of lack of proven edge, where it's, that's like, how much time have you put in knowing what your edge is?
That's right.
Do you have an edge?
That's right. And I don't know that you might even now, Stephen Johnson's been at this for 4 years. He's realizing that there are certain things around his proven edge that might need to change now. Yeah. So, no matter how sophisticated you are, I think the key here is that there's always another edge you might need to have in your back pocket. One is not enough, probably.
It depends on like how far you've, especially for people who just started in the past year, especially like doing patterns like I primarily do, which is like swinging long breakouts. Everything worked last year, and now this year it's especially the past month. I've stopped out of far more trades in the past month than I did last, like probably in months. Like I had months where there was just nothing stopping out last year, and then in the past month, it's down to like 70% just getting stopped because everything was just like constantly going up because so much money was in the market. But
totally.
Yeah. So
it's tricky. So lack of proven edge, take the time you need to find your proven edge. Mariana is a recent Tim Sykes millionaire, first female millionaire student. And what she used to describe this was her personality. Like she has sought out her personality and what that pattern is that she does. She knew that there are all these other patterns, but they just didn't fit her temperament. They just didn't fit her kind of a lens of how she got excited. Like she looked for like, what turns me on? What makes me excited? What can I wait to see? What do I spot a mile away? Mm-hmm. And that became her proven edge. So I would say take the time to do that.
Yeah. You got to find what works for you more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about greed.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, that's the first thing I bumped into when I took the Mara trade, my first trade.
I remember.
That's what I bumped into. So, it's the key. It's just recognizing it, people, right? Noticing when that's what's afoot. And it always is afoot because we are super triggered about money. We're more triggered about money than we are really on any topic psychologically. It's the one that's always going to kind of throttle us by the throat. So it's, you got to know that it's your disposition. It's, I think, instinct to take more just because it's probably how we survived back in the day on the Serengeti, The more meat we had, the more full we'd be for a few days.
Exactly, yeah. And so you had to scrape everything off the bone. And one thing to remember about trading, is you're never going to, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say never, you might get lucky one time in your life, but you're never going to you're never going to bottom tick to top tick or vice versa. Yeah. It's just impossible to do. And so you just have to grab the most that you can and that you're comfortable and that your plan holds. So,
yeah. Yep. And to realize that it just is human nature to not make yourself wrong about it, but to also look at perhaps the variables that inform that. If you're greedy, then I see it also the other side of that coin is you're coming from a place of scarcity. Yeah. And it could be, and I do see this with new traders, they are coming from a place of scarcity. They've just quit their job because they think they're going to start making money as a trader full time. And it's like, if you put a metaphoric gun to your head of scarcity, then you are going to even be more controlled by the greed monster as a trader, because now you have to pay your rent with that money that you say that the market has to give you, but it may not give it to you. Yeah. So why would you want to put that kind of pressure on yourself? Please don't.
Please don't. Don't do
that. Don't make the greed monster get bigger. He's fed by that. He becomes even 500 times bigger by that. Yeah, but also maybe look at your relationship to money. Like if it isn't because you have to pay your rent, but you're still being influenced by greed, like how much is enough? Have you ever asked yourself that question? That great story that I've referred to in the past about, Kurt Vonnegut being at a big hedge fund guy's party on the east end of Long Island. And, the guy was bragging about all that he had, a private jet, this and that. And look, nothing wrong with those things. I'm all for that. However, Kurt Vonnegut at that point, the guy was kind of making fun of him, because he only wrote, one successful book or a handful of successful books. But, look at all these things I have. He was kind of bragging, this guy. And then if it was Kurt Vonnegut or his friends looked at the guy and said, but I'll have something you'll never have. And the man said, what's that? And he said, enough. So what's your enough?
Yeah, exactly.
Find it out.
Yeah. And I would say also, something that helps, we're never going to totally get rid of greed. And I mean, maybe you can. I don't know that I can, I guess maybe it's such an ingrained human emotion. But if you can focus on the process and being in practice, I feel like that really helps me, where I'm not thinking about money or getting greedy. And even then it's I'm just trying to execute as best as I can, not to the fullest. I'm not trying to max it out every time. I'm just trying to execute it as best I can and stick to my discipline.
So that sounds to me like what you've done is you have created kind of a stanchion between you and that greed monster taking over your trading.
Yeah, exactly. Put up this big wall.
And you keep the separation of church and state.
Exactly.
Which is really smart, because I think ultimately we are misguided at thinking we can stop it midstream. We can't stop it midstream.
Yeah.
It will take us over.
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to catch it, because as self-aware as we might be, we still are going to have that instinctive, kind of probably movement towards having more than enough. I don't know if it's instinctive. I want to maybe take that back. I think it's taught to us, like the culture, the society, the household of origin we grow up in. I'm sure that some places where that scarcity isn't the experience, like I think to the native, Hawaiians going back in the day, I don't know that they probably ever experienced scarcity, because even the way the land was cut, they had access to the farming, and they had access to the sea for fish, right? They set it up that way so that everybody had a slice of the whole pie, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that, so there probably are cultures where you're not raised in that scarcity. And I really wonder what would happen for those people if they had that opportunity to be greedy or not. It'd be, but everything I've read in neuropsychology or the concept of, behavioral economics, it just seems to present us as people that aren't going to always default to greed.
Unfortunately, just be aware of it. It's important to be aware of it, so that whatever we're aware of, we can, when you have the awareness, then you can recognize it.
Or put the wall up.
Yeah.
The awareness puts up a wall like Lucas has put up for himself and his own trading.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't get it's like sand trap, so you don't get stuck in the sand trap.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. And then we're going to talk a little bit about ego and the difference between capital E ego, lowercase e ego. Is that those concepts, have you been exposed to that concept of the capital E ego, lowercase ego?
Yeah, but you are far more established in this, so why don't you explain?
I just learned it right out of the gate in the coach training classes that we were taking. They were just trying to help us distinguish that sense of higher self versus base self. The base self that would just be coming from a place of greed, more insatiable ego is the lowercase e ego. Yeah. And the higher self, kind of best version of yourself, is the capital E ego. And I actually think I probably got exposed to this way before even coach training. I took a college psychology course in high school because I was so fascinated with this topic, just psychology in general. Yeah. And I just remember my teacher even then trying to help us identify when our behaviors were being motivated by our higher self, capital E ego, or if the lowercase ego was at hand or at play or at work. And I feel like we even had a class where we identified behaviors of ourselves that week, that day, that had lent itself to the lowercase e ego. And he also, lucky for me, wasn't shaming us, wasn't making us wrong, but trying to help us identify what things are in place that facilitate, the lowercase e ego to be driving our vehicle, so to speak. And it was just a really helpful way of being able to see, oh, I noticed that is how I'm operating. That's not the way I want to operate. That's not the place. That's not the way I want to choose to live my life from. So he wanted us to just be conscious of that. Dr. Lamonti, I think that was his name. I'm pretty excited to remember it.
Did Dr. Lamonti give you any instances or advice on how to recognize that or feel that when one was driving or the other?
If I recall correctly, his technique was just awareness, like notice what is I think he did give us a distinction, like there will be this a less what's the word, attachment when you're coming from your higher self. Like when you're coming from the capital E ego, you'll be able to be more in a place of coming from a place of equanimity, a place of ease. There isn't grasping, so to speak.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience in a psychology class as well. And they said, or I forget exactly how it was put, but basically like with the lowercase e ego is constantly looking for recognition. And the upper ego, our higher self, is just existing and like being our best version at all times and doesn't need the recognition.
Yeah, beautiful. It's really a really succinct definition. I love that. It's so true. So true. But the recognition, that the lowercase e ego wants, it's like I don't want to make it wrong, right? Because it thinks that recognition is what will sustain it.
Exactly.
It just thinks that, oh, if I just get this recognition, then I feel nourished. But the challenge with that is that it is never fully nourished.
Mm-hmm.
Because
the lowercase is greedy.
it's greedy, but it's greedy because it never feels nourished with all the accolades in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
And it's, because I've been very fortunate to work with a diverse collection of people, I have been able to work with billionaires. I have been able to work with people who are, cutting coupons out to make ends meet. And I can promise you that both of these people can experience, the person cutting coupons can feel incredibly wealthy, and the billionaire can feel incredibly coming from a place of complete scarcity. Mm. And I think that, along the way, for me and my own journey, at the beginning really shocked me that a billionaire could be coming from a place of not enough. Wow. But that once I really got that was an internal place, and that person who had what most would say nothing had seemingly everything because of the internal experience. So that is, early on I was able to really get, wow, this is all about the internal experience. The external is actually not the cause. It's the internal that's the cause on the way life is experienced.
Yeah. Getting into some pretty deep stuff here.
Pretty deep stuff, but all important, because trading is the most competitive game in the world. And it's a deep, serious game, people. And really, one of the conversations we had with Steady Trade, Tim Bowen said he sees so many traders not taking it seriously. And I guess, the people that are watching our podcast, some of you guys are sophisticated and gals, some of you are beginners, but I would just say take it seriously. Like, take the trading you're going to do, however deep and far and wide you're going to go. Take it seriously. Pay attention to these common issues, because these issues repeat themselves no matter how sophisticated a trader you are. You're going to still bump into a fear of failure. You're going to still bump into a fear of missing out. You're going to still bump into a lack of discipline, perhaps in a new pattern you're learning. You're going to have an issue with a proven edge. Maybe you've learned one. Maybe you've adapted. Maybe now the market has changed and you need to come up with a different edge or a better edge or another edge. Greed, you're going to have to keep an eye out for that. And your ego, look, at the end of the day, they are in conflict with one another, the lowercase e ego and the capital E ego. And you want to just be in tune to when that grasping that you described is afoot, because it's not going to probably take you down the path you really want. There's going to be a cost. A hidden cost, perhaps. Sometimes it's not so hidden, but sometimes there it is hidden, because it's your health, it's your equanimity in your own head, your family, your friends. There's could be a lot of different costs. So
I would say that's something you can always do, and I encourage people to do that. I try to do, every day, if not every week, is one, I have a meditation practice, but two, sit and just think about where you're at and how you're feeling. You sent me that video the other day. That was really interesting, of just the guy I remember they were in an auditorium, and it was basically a meditation. It's just close your eyes and just sit and just feel whatever it is you're feeling. And if you can do that and just think, close your eyes and just think about where you're at in your life, where you're at, and I think things will come up that you're not even aware of. Yeah.
It's like giving yourself space to just be and not do, so that you can just do that check-in. Joseph Campbell actually said that every day you need to visit this room. And the room he was talking about is that inner room where the news isn't informing you, where you're not listening to the noise, but you're listening to yourself. What do you need, self? What do you not have enough of, self? How are you feeling, self? You know?
Yeah, you gotta take your own temperature sometimes and just
I agree.
See where you're maybe pushing too hard and where you're not giving enough attention.
Exactly. And to quote one of the most deep and spiritual and philosophical men of all time, Ferris Bueller, you got to stop once in a while because life can move very fast and you got to smell those roses.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So maybe we close there. That's close perfect. There on Ferris Bueller, the first philosopher.
Ferris Bueller. I don't know what we're doing.
I think that's pretty good. I think Ferris Bueller he was a legend in my youth. I remember seeing him, and I was like, wow, I wish I could be like Ferris Bueller. Just a brilliant. It is truly a very deep movie. If you guys haven't seen it, a little bit older,
and it's a classic. It's a classic, funny, but also there are some pretty profound moments in it. So
pretty profound moments for sure. Yeah. All right, well, thanks guys for listening to us. Please tell us what you think. This is a little bit of a shorter episode today, but hopefully you'll give us comments about whether you like the short episodes. Do you want them longer? Like, we're probably going to just do what we do because sometimes they're going to be long and sometimes they're going to be short. But please weigh in because we do read your comments on YouTube for sure. And if you like what you hear, come and give us a review, perhaps on iTunes, or even give us a thumbs up on YouTube.
Yeah, we got some very fun guests coming up.
Yes, we do. We do. We have a lot of amazing guests. And I'm so excited for you guys to meet some of them because, some of them are people that have been in my life for a long time and influenced me, but some are new friends. And I'm very excited to share what they have to teach all of us. So and also join us on Instagram Live when you can, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. We'll say sayonara for now, aloha, and hui ho till next time.
This has been the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Curtin. You can find out more about her and her team online at thewallstreetcoach.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.